It was a Toyota 2000 GT, now worth between $700,000 and $1 million, depending on the market, and if one is even on market. And my father, he had the only one on the island of Puerto Rico. My earliest childhood memory, and what I attribute my love of cars to, is being in this car with my father racing around the island of Puerto Rico, which I know is not the most politically correct thing to do, to have your toddler, hanging on to the whatever I was hanging on to. I wasn't even seatbelted in, I'm sure. My father ended up crashing that car and selling it back to the dealership group that had imported the car. Unbeknownst to me, they repainted the car a different color when they fixed it, and then the car got sold off to the US. But I lost track of the car. I mean, first I was a kid. When I talked to my parents about stories about the car, they lost track of the car when it went back to the dealership group. So fast forward now, 40 some years, I'm at Pebble Beach, the big car week in Pebble Beach in Monterey, California, working. So after we finish our morning session, before we have to come back to the 6 p.m. or 6:15, I think it might have been, session in the afternoon, we have a lot of downtime. And some of that time you spend on the racetrack, meeting people and promoting Audi and talking to them about the cars that we had on display. But we also get a bit of a break. And so we're walking around looking at various cars, and we're outside looking at an LFA, a Lexus LFA. We presented that car to all the people that had ordered it and that were getting it. And most of these people were Lexus dealership owners. So as we're talking about the car, a gentleman walks up. He goes, "Hey, listen, I'm a Ferrari guy, but I love that car. That car is amazing." And as he says that, we both, my friend Ram and I, turn and look at him. And so we start having a conversation with this guy, and I'm telling him a little bit about the engine. I don't know what he knows and doesn't know. And then I notice he's wearing a hat that says 2000 GT, Toyota 2000 GT, right? And I said, "Is that a 2000 GT as in the Toyota 2000 GT? And he goes, "Oh, you know the Toyota 2000 GT, because it's such an obscure car, right? One of 351. And I go, yeah, I know it. In fact, I grew up in one. My father had one." And he goes, "Wow, that's amazing." He goes, "I have 9 of them." So I go, 9 of them? And he goes, "Yeah, I have a photo. Hold on, I'll show you." So he gets on his phone and starts looking for his photo of his 9. And I get on my phone and I start looking for the photo of me as a little toddler in my father's car. And as I'm looking for the photo, he's like, "Man, that's so cool that your dad had one," or something like that. And I go, "Yeah, he had the only one on the island of Puerto Rico." And as I say this, I notice that he stops moving. I turn up and look at him, and his eyes are big, and he goes, "I have your car." And I'm looking at this guy like, "Wait, what?" And so I finally find the photo of me as a toddler, and I show it to him, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Zoom in on the license." I zoom in on the license plate. He still has the original license plate, and I'm thinking, no way. So he starts telling me the story about how he acquired it and this and that. And as we're having this discussion, a gentleman walks up, and so he starts kind of inadvertently giving this guy some of my credentials, and the guy's like, "Wait, you're a professional driver?" and da-da-da. So the guy says to me, he goes, "Listen, do me a favor." He goes, "Where do you live?" And I go, "I live in San Diego." He goes, "Why don't you fly to Florida, or next time you're in Florida, let me know. I want to reunite you with your dad's car. You got to drive this car." And I'm thinking, holy crap, seriously? We started corresponding via email, trying to get together. I finally go see the car a year and a half later, probably. And I'm walking around the car looking at it, just like tearing up at this, my dad's long gone now. He's no longer around. And so it was just cool to see this car that I'm sure meant to him what it would mean to me if I owned something like that now. My friend who was there when I met this guy, he got invited too, so he came with me. And so we took out 3 of his 13 2000 GTs. I took my father's car. My friend, who's very tall, this guy looked at him, the owner of the cars, looked at him and goes, "We're going to put you in the convertible." Well, it's one of 2 convertibles in existence. They only ever built the 2. And if you remember, they built them for the James Bond movie. So we went out, and just before we take off on the road, he walks up to both of us. The cars are running. We're all about to get in. He stops and comes back to us, calls Ram over, and he goes, "You 2 are professional drivers, right?" And we're like, "Oh shit, where's this going?" We're like, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, boys, try to keep up." Let me tell you, we get on the highway, and this guy starts ripping. And I don't want to tell you how fast we were going, but certainly fast enough that we would have had some explaining to do had we been stopped. And we spent the next 2.5, 3 hours just hammering on these cars. At one point, we doubled back on a road that I felt comfortable enough, that it was spacious enough. I pushed the car a little bit, felt a little bit of a slip angle through the corner. And I just remember thinking, I'm sure, but don't remember. I'm like, I wonder if my dad did this stuff in Puerto Rico. And I'm sure he was hammering that car even more than we were. It was amazing. So not only the guy's generosity to offer his cars up, but then to take the time out of his day and spend 3 hours just being a knucklehead with 2 other car knuckleheads. It was incredible.